If we added to that, you talk about something neat, and it's almost too late in the day. Well, I'll do a little Ezekiel. Okay, just a little. So let me get you to Ezekiel chapter 1, because Ezekiel's even more graphic. And this is what it says in Ezekiel, it's the same place. In Ezekiel 1, verses 4 through 6, and I looked, and a great whirlwind coming out of the north, a great cloud with raging fire engulfing itself, and brightness all around, radiant. Out of the midst of the color was amber, and out of the midst of the fire, and from and within the likeness of 4 living creatures. Same, we're seeing the same place. And when you see God's throne, remember I told you this? Every time when you see heaven, the throne is it's the centerpiece of heaven. It's surrounded by clouds of raging fire. And then look at verse 7. And their legs, these are these creatures, their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the soles of calves' feet, and they sparkled with the color of burnished bronze. And the hands of man were under the wings and the 4 sides, and each of the 4 had they're sparkling. They're like reflective. That's what the burnished bronze is. It's not dull, the kind that hasn't had you see bronze stuff and it's all kind of dull. But then when they come and polish it, it almost looks like gold. They're polished. And so there's this clouds of raging fire, these sparkling ones, and then look at verse 13. It continues and it says, and as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire. So think of a campfire and the bright, when you're really looking right in the midst where it's the hottest, it's that bright burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches. But look at this, going back and forth among the living creatures. So it's like there's sparks going between them. And the fire was bright. And out of the fire, verse 13 says, goes lightning. We're off the charts here. I mean, this is better than any sci-fi CGI movie. And this is God's throne. This is the center of the universe. Why is this so important? Because John was a prisoner on an island, and it kind of looked like Rome was winning. The Roman emperor was killing people, murdering. He was destroying the people of God, destroyed the city of God, Jerusalem, hunting down all the apostles, everything else that was going on. And what did John need to see? By the way, nothing changed for John. All God said is God didn't stop his time on the island of being a prisoner. All he did is open a door and said, John, the most important thing for you is to see what's going on above you, around you, beyond you. It'll change. Your orientation toward God will change everything. Flashes of lightning, these angelic beings covered with eyes. We don't have time to read all this. You can read it on your own. Then it goes through that crystal sea, reflecting the light of his glory. It's almost like the whole floor is diamonds, and it's just sparkling. And every time the lightning goes, it reflects in that floor. And then there's this sound like mighty waters. So guess what? Today, that's where our prayers and worship arrive, right there. And by the way, if you're a Christian, what I just read is what you're going to see when you open your eyes after your last breath on earth. Amazing to think about. Did you know when the early church got this letter, they were so excited? They even got too excited. Did you know the early church, some of them started volunteering to go into the arena and die? And the pastors and the leaders had to say, no. Like Paul said, you desire to depart and to be with Christ because it's so wonderful, but you need to stay here and do what you were called to do. Well, when we get to the New Testament, Paul takes this scene, he adds what Daniel puts in. If we went to Daniel 7, do you know what Daniel says? This throne not only has everything else I told you about, there's a river of fire that comes out of the bottom of the steps. A river of fire. When I was a pastor in New England, I said, I've never seen a river of fire. And so this man in the congregation owned a foundry. Do you know what a foundry is? It's where they melt iron and steel and pour it. And he called me that week and said, you need to see a river of fire so the rest of your ministry, you don't ever say, I've never seen a river of fire. He said, come with me. And we went to his humongous factory. His family, by the way, owned the Boston Red Sox back then, 40 years ago. And he took me up into this little scaffolding over, and there was this electric furnace. The pot was from the floor almost to the ceiling. It was this giant electric furnace on a moving arm. And we got up above so we could see down into it. And he even motioned to the operator to turn it a little bit forward so we could look down into it. And then he went like this. That meant turn up the heat. And it was when we got up in the scaffolding. By the way, we had to wear this asbestos stuff and big goggles. And I mean, it was really fun. You know, it just, wow, I was going to see a river of fire. I couldn't wait. So we're standing up there. He went like that. That pot went from red to white explosions like diamonds. He made them boil the molten iron. It was boiling. Now, it probably used a lot of electricity, and he went, you know, but he boiled that stuff. And then he went, and they tipped it forward, and they were pouring a casting, and it poured out like batter into a cake pan, only it was exploding with sparks and color, and I mean, it looked like the throne of God, and it made a river. The whole length of the factory was the mold, and they poured that molten, boiling iron. And he said, he had his headphones on talking to him. He says, there's your river of fire. Wow. The throne of God, river of fire flowing out of it, surrounded by this sea of glass, with these burning ones, the 7, and the 24 elders. But Daniel adds that there are thousands of thousands angels and 10,000 times 10,000. There are thousands of thousands, which are millions, that are moving around doing little jobs. And there are hundreds of millions standing all the way around that throne.